The sunlight cut sharply across the dusty parking lot of a small roadside bar just outside town. It was one of those places people usually passed without a second thought, a worn neon sign buzzing weakly in the daylight, the smell of fried food lingering in the air. But inside, the air was thick with tension, an uneasiness that pressed down on the chest and made even the simplest breath feel heavy. In one corner, two young women sat quietly, their twin-like resemblance unmistakable. Their sharp eyes scanned the room with more awareness than anyone noticed. And just across the bar, three uniformed officers circled them like wolves who had spotted easy prey. That was when Marcus Hale walked in. Marcus was a man you could pick out in a crowd, not because he was trying to be noticed, but because life had carved him into someone impossible to overlook. A single dad, a war veteran, a man who carried the kind of scars that weren't just on his body, but etched deep into his soul. He'd only stopped by for a sandwich after dropping his daughter at a friend's house for the afternoon. He didn't know that fate was about to test him in ways he hadn't faced since the battlefield. Viewers, before we dive deeper, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for others when it's needed most, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Fearless Grace. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. Marcus had a way of noticing details most people ignored. It came from years of scanning rooftops, alleys, and roadsides in war zones. When he walked in, his eyes immediately landed on the girls. They couldn't have been more than 25. Identical long dark hair tied neatly back, jeans, leather jackets, and an almost defiant steadiness in their posture. But what struck Marcus was the way the three cops leaned too close, voices sharp and eyes full of arrogance. Something about the scene twisted his stomach. He slid onto a stool at the bar, ordered water, and kept his attention on the reflection in the dusty mirror behind the counter. The tallest officer leaned in, gripping one girl's wrist as though daring her to pull away. The other officer sneered, blocking their escape route. The twins' faces remained calm, controlled, but Marcus could sense the tension like static before a storm. He knew that look. The look of people who could handle themselves but were waiting for the right moment. Still, he couldn't just sit there. For Marcus, silence had never been an option. He'd seen too many good men fall because bystanders didn't step up. He rose slowly, shoulders squared, every inch of him radiating quiet strength. The bar fell silent as he walked over, the sound of his boots against the wooden floor echoing louder than the jukebox that had just sputtered off. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, voice steady, calm, yet carrying a weight that made people listen. The officers turned smirks on their faces, as if amused by the interruption. One barked out something about minding his own business. But Marcus stood his ground. His eyes didn't leave the twins' faces. For a split second, he thought he saw relief flicker across their expressions, but it was gone as quickly as it came. The next few moments were a blur. The officer tightened his grip on the girl's arm. Marcus stepped forward, his hand wrapping around the cop's wrist with controlled precision. Years of military training surged through his body, his instincts sharper than steel. In one swift motion, he twisted the cop's arm and freed the girl, placing himself between the officers and the twins. The bar erupted in murmurs. Some people pulled out their phones, others just froze in their seats. Marcus didn't care. All he saw were two young women being cornered, and all he felt was the fire of every oath he'd ever taken. To protect, to defend, to never walk away. The officers stepped back, suddenly cautious. Marcus wasn't just another man at a bar. His presence carried a force that made even armed men hesitate. The girls stood close behind him now, their composure unshaken, though Marcus could sense the storm swirling within them. One officer muttered something about calling for backup. Another spat on the floor, glaring at Marcus before the group finally backed off, muttering threats as they left the bar. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus turned to the girls expecting fear, maybe tears. But instead, he was met with steady eyes and the kind of quiet strength he recognized instantly. That was when he realized these weren't ordinary young women. As the tension faded, they introduced themselves as Elena and Claire Vega. Their voices carried gratitude, but there was also something unspoken lingering in their tone. Marcus brushed it off, thinking he'd done his part. He was ready to leave, but they stopped him with a single sentence that would shift the ground beneath his feet. "We're FBI agents." Marcus froze, He almost laughed at the absurdity, but the intensity in their eyes told him they weren't joking. They explained that they had been deep in an undercover assignment, trailing corruption that ran deep within the local police force. The officers he had just stood up to weren't just cops. They were part of the very network the twins had been trying to expose. Marcus felt the weight of what had just happened settle over him. By stepping in, he had unknowingly inserted himself into a dangerous web far bigger than a bar fight. But instead of regret, what surged inside him was a fierce protective instinct. These women, trained agents or not, had been cornered, and Marcus knew firsthand what it meant to stand with someone when the world tried to break them. Over the next few hours, as the sunlight stretched long across the parking lot, Marcus sat with Elena and Claire. They shared bits of their mission, careful not to reveal too much, but enough for Marcus to understand the gravity. He told them about his daughter, his battles with finding peace after war, and the quiet life he was trying to build. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like his instincts, his training, his scars, they all had a purpose again. But danger wasn't done circling them. That same evening, as Marcus walked the twins to their car, the sound of tires screeching split the air. A dark SUV pulled up fast, doors flinging open. It was the same officers, now out of uniform, joined by others whose eyes burned with intent. Guns glinted under the daylight. Marcus didn't hesitate. He shoved Elena and Claire behind the car for cover, his own body shielding them. The air was electric with the threat of violence. The agents revealed their concealed weapons, ready but calm, their movements precise. Marcus, unarmed, positioned himself like a wall in front of them. For a tense stretch of moments, the world held its breath. Then Elena stepped forward, flashing her badge with unwavering authority. FBI, drop your weapons. Her voice cracked through the chaos like thunder. The men faltered, rage flashing across their faces, but hesitation gnawed at them. Claire raised her weapon, steady as stone. And Marcus, his presence, his stance, was enough to tip the balance. The officers knew they were outmatched, not just by the law, but by the iron will standing before them. Sirens soon wailed in the distance. Backup arrived, this time real agents, sweeping in to arrest the corrupt officers. The bar parking lot, once a stage for danger, transformed into a scene of justice being served. As the dust settled, Elena and Claire turned to Marcus. Gratitude shone in their eyes, but more than that, respect. They told him he wasn't just a man who had stepped into the wrong place at the right time. He was the reason they were able to finish what they had started. Without him, the outcome could have been far darker. Marcus drove home later, the weight of the day heavy yet strangely freeing. He looked at the picture of his daughter taped to his dashboard and realized something important. Life had been trying to tell him he was done, that his time as a protector had ended with his discharge. But today proved otherwise. Protecting wasn't just something he used to do. It was who he was, and it always would be. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that courage can live in ordinary places and that standing up for others is never wasted, please like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to Fearless Grace for more powerful stories. And one special request before you leave, comment below. Do you believe that ordinary people can become heroes in unexpected moments? Your words matter, and we'd love to hear your thoughts. Marcus's story wasn't about medals or recognition. It was about a man who chose once again to stand between danger and the innocent. And in doing so, he reminded us all of something timeless. True strength is not in the battles you've fought, but in the lives you choose to protect.